So we're here with the one and only Dan DiDio and Jim Califiore. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Enjoying the show so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's early.
It is.
We're not dead yet from exhaustion.
Right. Yeah. And I'm going to have you say, this is the only day I'm here, so this works out really great. So nice. I can give it my all and then go home.
So
I'm going to get hand cramps, I see. Yeah.
As the kids say, you guys have been around for a minute. What appealed to you about Defenders of the Earth to bring back that old property as a book?
For me, I was familiar with the show, and I was actually familiar. And the reason why is that I always wanted to work in animation, and I wound up getting into ABC Children's Television, being one of the executives over there, and then working with an animation company after that. So I was very familiar with a lot of the cartoons that were running especially in syndication. And what caught me interested in Defenders naturally that it was developed by Marvel Studios, and I was intrigued by that. Stan Lee was involved in development, so back in the 80s, that seemed like a big deal to me. So when I learned about the show, I watched it, and I found that it had a slightly more mature take. The fact that Dale Arden gets killed in the first episode of the series is fascinating to me because that's not something I expected, and they do some stories that are a little more mature as they go on within the course of the 65-episode run. So I found it interesting, but the reason why I really wanted to work on the book was to work on characters like the Phantom, Flash Gordon, and Mandrake. These are characters that I have never been involved with, and I've done not just at DC, but with other characters over the years. So to be a chance to work with them and explore who they were was an interesting opportunity.
Okay. And honestly, I had never heard of the TV show at all.
This is why he lets me go first. But
I was just talking to editor-in-chief, and who was my editor on Exiles and Gotham Underground and stuff at DC. Yeah. And he mentioned the project, and then it was, obviously I know Flash Gordon, I know Phantom.
Right.
Mandrake I was minimally familiar with, and the fourth character, Lothar, I'd never heard of.
Right.
But it was, that's what got me into it. Like I said, I didn't know the show, but the characters to work on Flash and Phantom, and I'm really enjoying working on Phantom.
So, with people, I feel like we're probably close in age, but with people of us that grew up in the 80s with this cartoon, there's a nostalgia factor to this. But where does it, you think, would fall in young readers?
Listen, everything right now, there's so much nostalgia being driven in all the comics right now. Not just in comics, in all media, if you want to be perfectly honest. Everything is this constant pushback of older, pre-existing material being, brushed off and brightened up a little bit. I think that what was good about Defenders is it had a strong enough base as a slightly more mature, but I think worked better in comics than having to change what the high concept was. I've worked on a lot of the Hanna-Barbera material and brought that over in Looney Tunes, and you had to do some sort of reinvention on this. Here, it's just a slight change. For me, it was a change of perspective and setting up a new concept for the story to move forward, but all the characters are the same ones that were in the show and the ones that are in here in their actions and behavior.
And there's jump ahead of 10 years?
About 5 years.
5 years ahead. So the characters are mature. For me, with art-wise, the designs were definitely 80s.
Yes.
Each character had a son or daughter, in essence.
Yes.
It was a ward or the son, and big hair.
Right.
So it was, we redesigned that. But the interesting thing was I kept Flash's son with the big hair.
Nice.
Just because it was stuck to me a little bit. But so everything needed to be updated that way.
Yeah, and what I love about it, because he's having a lot of fun with Rick, as am I, they have so many, in that cave, they have so much Flash good stuff happening right now, and Jeremy Adams is doing this beautiful job with the Flash book, that it gives us the liberty to try and explore the other characters. We're talking before, we have a big cast. We have about 13 regular characters in this series just because of the four leads, their sons, daughters, wards, then you have the villains, and then you have just some peripheral characters involved in that too. And like I said, it's a huge cast. And the fact that we were able to update them and have some fun with them, I think, is what mattered. But I like bringing Rick into his 20s, because now it's his perspective isn't somebody of a teenager who thinks he knows everything. He's actually a 20-year-old who has a better sense of right and wrong. And if he sees the parents going off track, he has a better position to try to talk to them and to try to get them back in a better perspective, you know, which has been fun.
Honestly, I'm just wondering, because you mentioned you guys have been in it since the 80s, and comics are so different now. I came from that era. I was born in 1980. I got into comics because I go to the grocery store with my grandma, and I look at the comic rack while she was shopping. So it always kind of makes me wonder, with somebody that's been in the business, you know, building for so long, what is to you the biggest change? Hey, I'm right there. You know, I play a good young guy, but I'm just lying. But what to you is the biggest change from the 80s, where we could go to a grocery store and spin a rack, to today where that's non-existent? You got to go to an LGS or, you know, order online. So in that span of time, what's been the biggest difference?
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything. From production values to the behind-the-scenes business of it, to the fact that when you were going to the spinning rack, you know, did you know that Phoenix was going to die?
No, right, exactly. Yeah.
Nowadays, if that was a storyline, we'd know she was dying.
Right.
To hype up the sales, you know, it was just you were sort of on your own. You might have had a couple of people you knew who bought comics. You were on your own, hoping that I went to a 7-Eleven and a Krauser's, company named Carrie, because sometimes they wouldn't have all the books on the spinny racks.
Right.
And I go there, and then I go there to make sure anything that I missed. I might have some friends I talked to about it. So even that aspect of it, and you know, it's just grown up. Everything's so much more mature than it was in the 80s.
Yeah.
But I would say everything's different.
Everything. Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, it's a different business. It's the same format, but it's a different business.
Yeah.
You know, the series of just very cover business. It's the collectability business. It's the pricing of these. It's just, you know, the fact that it's direct market and the ordering is pre-ordering in advance, so a lot of this is pre-sale. There's no spontaneity in purchase, no casual buyers, nobody just being able to find things, because the level of investment on the retailer side and everybody's side is just so much, and just the sheer volume of product. There's no gatekeeper anymore. Literally everything could be on the shelf. You know, if you're, you know, as a retailer, you can buy every single product. There is nothing that's focusing the material, and it's diffused the audience a great deal. There's a great diversity in product, no dons, but there's also lower thresholds, and it's harder to find things. And a lot of things get lost in the shuffle now, probably more so than ever. And that's one of the reasons why you see so much material based on pre-existing ideas and properties, because you're trying to do anything you can be noticed in a very crowded marketplace. And what do? You put something out there that has some sort of built-in audience or pre-awareness. In order to do it, it limits out there the amount of new material that people could find. And most of the materials built for an existing audience has been reading for 10 to 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 years already. So when you have that much going on there, the difficulty of creating product for a younger audience or a newer audience with a fresh set of eyes might be contrary to what's in the marketplace at the moment. And that fight drives maybe new readers away while you're constantly feeding the current fan base.
Yeah. The interior paper doesn't turn yellow anymore.
Yeah, well, that's good. There's that. There you go.
I mean, it's funny because you hit the nail on the head perfectly. It's why you're who you are. But it's the same thing in television and movies, right? Yeah. Like with streaming services, everything is so diffused now that you can get niche with entertainment, but you're not going to get the audience that you got when it was just 3 seasons.
Yeah. What happened is they went in television. They went for market share. They went for demographics. You know, because they were getting a bigger audience, they were a very focused audience. And now that that's getting lost, they're not sure who they're selling to anymore.
Right.
In comics, we're aging our material up with our core fan base. And I always used to have an expression at DC Comics is, I didn't want to be the guy in charge when we sold 1,000 books for $100 each.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Because ultimately you kept on shrinking your audience, and every time you do a price increase, you tighten the belt on the number of people, and you're selling to less and less people. On your spreadsheet, it looks the same, but the reality is your fan base is smaller, and sooner or later you're going to be at a spot where the price point chases so many people where you can't compensate it with the price rate change you make. And I'm sorry, I'm getting into something completely off.
Hey.
So, and we have pretty pictures. That's the big thing about it.
So to get back to Defenders,
I zoned out about 3 minutes ago.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm sorry.
I can talk
about this all day too. Listen, you should have gave me a regular chair instead of a soapbox to sit on.
With Defenders, do you guys have an arc planned? Oh. How many issues have you planned?
Oh, yeah, no, we're talking about this today. I was just saying that I had a problem with a double-page spread, and Jim just laid it out beautifully for me. So I'm very excited about that because I couldn't figure out how to make the dialogue work, and he just laid it out perfectly for me. But there's a big term plan. There's a story and arc for each one of the four main characters and their family members. And I think there's a good story that has a beginning, middle, and end. My goal, yes, what's different before? Goal is to give a complete thought in every issue, so that there's something that you get out of every issue. Jim's storytelling is actual storytelling, which is what I really enjoy. So, it makes it fun to read and follow and understand. So you're able to tell a concise story because it's all there. But it also leads to the next issue, and if you put the whole story together, there's a big overarching story that I think you can really sink your teeth into and enjoy.
Cool. And it's 8 issues.
8 issues.
Yes. It's 8 issues. Yeah. Series.
Yeah, it's broken into. I don't want to say arcs either because there's a good cliffhanger at the end of the 4th issue that gets you into the next beat of the story. But there's if it was a big movie, it's the intermissions between 4 and 5, and we come back and and Don Corleone is coming back from the hospital.
I mean, and that's a good question too, because somebody who's been in the business for a while and has written for continual books that will never have an end. How different is it to be able to does it feel good to be able to say, hey, I've got a beginning, middle, and end, and I'm telling a full story?
It's a real miniseries in its own right. It's when you think about comics, miniseries originally were just 3 or 4 issues each. Because they couldn't support a full series. That's why they were called miniseries. But for here right now, 8 issues is good. You get a couple of collections out of it, which you think's maybe a good book at the end of the day when you bring the 2 parts together. I'm hoping to see that come together in a really nice way.
It's different storytelling. I mean, I write also. It's when you know they're not going any further than the end, you don't have to worry about them having anything further. Right. Or maybe even being alive or in any way capable of doing anything further, because you can end them.
Right. That's Jim's way of saying he wants me to kill every character at the end.
Just Zuffy.
Just Zuffy. He hates Zuffy. If I knew I hated Zuffy so much, I would have brought him in the first issue.
There you go. And that's why it's so much fun working with you.
So, when we normally sign off the podcast, we sign off by saying, don't let your cape get caught in the door.
What's that?
Don't let your cape get caught in the door.
Oh.
Which I heard, don't dip your cape in manure. And I'm like, wow, that's
all right. And by the way,
it's a new ending.
That's good advice too. Yeah.
Which started off as a joke and has come to mean don't let things get in your way of achieving your goals. So what's something that maybe you've overcome in your life to achieve one of your goals?
Just getting in to comics. I mean, it was. I always wanted to do it. I really didn't hang around with people who did comics, and I was just dragging my portfolio to shows and showing it to editors. That's when you'd really have the shows were smaller. DC would show up with just some tables, and you'd have editors, and you'd sit there. And I got my first gig for an independent publisher called Caliber Press, which was Gary Reed, who's a lot of people started there.
Yeah,
Jim
actually, I do stuff for Gary Reed too.
Huh?
I do stuff for Gary Reed too.
He was a good guy, and I mean, I didn't make any money. I was making dirt, but I would have paid him to publish me.
Yeah,
and that was it. When I got in, that was the biggest hurdle to get in. And once you're in, you're kind of in. It's not so hard anymore. You know this guy who goes over to this company. You know this guy who goes over there. And you got in. But that was my biggest hurdle, definitely getting in. I got in late. I think I was 27 or so, which is kind of late. I was talking to Mike McCone, right? He did JLA. When he started JLA, I'm like, you can't be younger than me because I read you before I got into the industry. And he's younger than me. So I got in sort of late, but,
Yeah, and I can see that mentality because when you're 27, you're getting close to 30, you start thinking, oh, it's getting too late to do things. So
yeah. But then there's people still coming to me with portfolio reviews, and they're in their 40s. It's a dream you hold on to. And I got in, and when the market collapsed in the 90s because the speculators left, and everybody moved on to other things and animation stuff, I hung on with my fingernails because I love the medium. so much.
Yes.
Yeah. My slogan, I have a weird career because I was in TV.
Yeah.
Then I was in animation, and then from animation I went over and got into comics after that. And I didn't come up to the bottom up, I came top down. It's kind of weird to be coming in that way, which is completely different perspective on the industry and different type of relationships you have because of that. But I have a slogan too. My slogan that used to be on my door, actually had it made, it was a plaque outside the door of my office in New York, was leave the fanboy at the door. And what that meant was there's a lot of things you want to do and write as a fan that you would never do or write as a professional, and
very true.
And you have to understand, and I say this to everybody, for anybody who's trying to break into the business, understand it is a business, it's a job. You're applying for a job, every piece of work you're applying for, everything you turn in, it's not because you love it so much, I deserve it because I care more than everybody else. That's not the way you break in. You break in by hard work, and you hear what Jim just said about just perseverance. And I always had an interest in comics. I always did work around comics so that I had an awareness and understanding of the business, so that ultimately what happened was when an opportunity came, I was able to step in with a base of knowledge that allowed me to take in a position that realistically, if you had followed the previous people in that job, I wasn't qualified for. Yeah. But because I had this knowledge and other outside knowledge, it made me ready for that job. So you're always preparing for something, but you always approach it as a job more so than anything else.
Okay.
Good. I'm good. I'm just in awe. Honestly, just thank you guys so much.
Pleasure.
I mean, obviously, legendary. You worked on Exiles. I love Exiles.
It was a great book.
Yeah, absolutely love Exiles. Well, so this is for me.
This is his first convention, too.
Right. I'm in New York City.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We've done every New York show from the point that it was closed by the fire marshals. So we know all about this.
All right, so then the question that we normally end on is, how do you measure success?
Money, right?
It's different times and different things. I mean, when I'm drawing something and it looks like I saw it in my head, that's successful. But being employed and being able to earn a living,
Right.
that's successful too.
Right.
Depends on what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of my career in comics, I'm still here. I'm still kicking.
Measure of success. I don't know. When I get there, I'll let you know. Not there yet.
Fair enough. Good answer.
Okay?
All right. Thank you guys very much.
My pleasure. Thank you guys very, very much.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Superhero Speak podcast. And don't forget to watch us live every Sunday night right here on this channel.
While you're here, hit the subscribe button and click the bell for notifications so you won't miss out on any of our great upcoming content.
Speaking of content, don't forget to check out our website, superheroespeak.com, where you can find the podcast, links to our social media, merch, comic reviews, and so much more. That's superheroespeak.com.
Thanks for watching, and don't let your cape be caught in the door. See you next time.